Rain struck the stained glass windows of the small cemetery chapel as Imani Rook stood beside the most feared billionaire in Baltimore. She wore a simple white wedding dress. Under it, she still had on her brown work boots. There was even a small patch of wet soil on one heel. Imani had spent years planting flowers around other people's graves. She had never dreamed she would get married in that same cemetery. She had dreamed even less that federal agents might interrupt the ceremony. Yet that was exactly what happened. 6 agents entered through the chapel doors. Their dark coats were wet from the rain. Their faces were hard and serious. The guests turned in shock. Imani's younger brother, Niles, lowered the phone he had been using to record the wedding. Maeve Sterling, the sharp white attorney seated in the second row, calmly closed her laptop. Maeve sighed. "Of course," she whispered. "I wore my good shoes for nothing." The altar, Malachi Voss did not move. He stood tall in a perfect black suit. He was 35, broad-shouldered and calm in a way that made other people nervous. His dark eyes moved from the agents to Imani. Only a few seconds earlier, he had been holding her hand. Now his fingers slowly released hers. The lead agent stepped forward. "Malachi Voss," the agent said, "you are under arrest for federal conspiracy, evidence tampering, and obstruction connected to the presumed deaths of Cyrus and Odessa Rook." Imani felt the room spin. Those were her parents. Her mother and father had died in a boat explosion 15 years earlier. At least that was what Imani had always believed. She turned to Malachi. "You said you never knew my parents," Imani whispered. Malachi's face tightened. "I said I did not know them as an adult," he responded. "I should have told you the rest." "Rest," the agents approached him. Imani stepped back as if the man beside her had suddenly become a stranger. "What rest, Malachi?" He did not answer. One of the agents reached for his arm. Malachi looked past Imani toward Maeve. The attorney had opened her laptop again. She turned the screen toward him for one quick second. Something changed in Malachi's eyes, then he faced Imani. "To your mother's memorial," Malachi said. "A new stone was delivered this morning. Dig beneath the one marked with tomorrow's date." Stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "You will find a metal case." The agent took Malachi's wrist. He did not resist. Imani's heart beat faster. "How do you know that?" "Maeve received a delayed message from your mother's archive less than 5 minutes ago." Looked toward Maeve, but Malachi continued before the attorney could speak. "Not go home with Niles," he warned. Niles stepped forward. "What is that supposed to mean?" Niles demanded. Malachi looked at him. "It means restricted security footage shows you entering a Voss Meridian office 3 nights ago." Niles went still. Imani turned toward the brother she had raised since he was 5. "Niles," his mouth opened, but no words came out. That frightened her more than a denial would have. Malachi's voice softened. "I do not know if he was forced, framed, or involved," he said. "Until you know, do not be alone with him." "You are the one being arrested," Niles snapped. Malachi replied. "Which means someone has planned this very well." The agents led him toward the open doors. Before stepping into the rain, Malachi looked back at Imani. For the first time since she had met him, he did not look like Baltimore's cold billionaire king. He looked afraid, not for himself, for her. The chapel doors closed behind him. Imani remained at the altar, wearing a wedding dress and muddy boots, caught between 2 men she no longer knew if she could trust. But how had a poor cemetery gardener ended up at the altar with a billionaire accused of hiding the truth about her parents? Why had her dead mother warned her about Malachi years before he arrived? And what was buried beneath a stone carrying a date that had not happened yet? The answer began 11 days earlier, when the dead grass at St. Orison Memorial Gardens suddenly turned green. 11 days before the wedding, Imani was kneeling beside a broken irrigation pipe at 6 in the morning. St. Orison Memorial Gardens was a private cemetery beside the northern edge of Druid Hill Park. It was not large, but it was peaceful. Old oak trees shaded the paths. Stone angels watched over family plots. In spring, pink flowers grew along the iron fence. Imani loved the quiet. Dead people did not judge her old truck, her faded work coat, or the late notices waiting on her kitchen table. That morning, however, the cemetery was not quiet. A loud splash came from behind her. Imani closed her eyes. "Please do not be the new mower," she whispered. It was the new mower. The expensive smart machine had driven away from its programmed route and rolled into a shallow decorative pond. Its wheels spun helplessly in the water. Imani stood and placed her hands on her hips. "That machine costs more than my apartment," she said, "and it still has less sense than my landlord." Her supervisor, Mr. Pritchard, came running down the path. He was short, nervous, and always looked as though he had just remembered a bill. "What happened?" he cried. The mower wanted to become a boat. "This is not funny, Imani. It is a little funny." Pritchard stared at the machine. "Can it be saved?" Imani picked up her wrench. "That depends. Is it willing to change?" "Mister." Pritchard did not laugh. He almost never did. Imani spent the next 20 minutes pulling the mower from the pond. By the time she finished, her boots were wet and her thick black curls had escaped from the scarf around her head. Then she noticed the grass near the Rook family memorial. It had changed. The night before, that patch had been brown and dry. Imani knew because she had checked it herself. No matter what she planted there, nothing survived for long. Now the grass was bright green. It formed a perfect circle around the small stone bearing her mother's name, Odessa Rook. Below it was a second name, Cyrus Rook. Were no bodies beneath the stone. Very little had been recovered after the explosion in the Chesapeake Bay. The memorial was simply a place where Imani and Niles could grieve. Imani crouched and touched the grass. The blades were warm. That made no sense in the cold morning air. She pressed her fingers into the soil and felt something hard beneath it. Using a hand spade, Imani dug carefully until she uncovered a small brass capsule. It was no larger than a flashlight and had Odessa's favorite flower carved into the side, a black-eyed Susan. Imani stopped breathing. She knew that carving. Her mother had drawn it on birthday cards, lunch notes, and the old metal seed box Imani kept at home. With shaking fingers, Imani twisted the capsule open. A tiny device blinked inside. Then a woman's voice came from it. "Imani, if this recording has opened, the founder shares have been activated." The hand spade fell from Imani's fingers. It was her mother's voice, older in Imani's memory, softer than she remembered, but it was Odessa. Imani pressed a hand over her mouth. The recording continued. "A man named Malachi Voss will come to St. Orison wearing a silver tie. He may ask for your hand. Listen to his offer, but do not trust his first explanation." Imani's eyes filled with tears. Her mother had been gone for 15 years. How could she have known that name? How could she know what a stranger would wear? Odessa's voice grew urgent. "If Malachi asks for your hand, it means the machine has found you. Do not give anyone the seed box. Protect Niles. And remember, a person can tell the truth while still hiding the part that matters most." The device went silent. "Imani," she almost screamed. Niles stood behind her with 2 cups of coffee. At 20, he was tall, lean, and always dressed like he expected someone to photograph him. That morning, he wore a green college sweatshirt and bright white sneakers that had no business being near cemetery soil. He looked at the open hole. "Please tell me that is not what it looks like," he said. "What does it look like?" "It looks like someone called a broke college student before sunrise to deliver coffee, then started digging without him." Imani quickly closed the capsule. Niles' smile disappeared. "What is that?" Before she could answer, 3 black SUVs entered through the cemetery gates. They moved slowly along the main path. Imani rose to her feet. The vehicles stopped near a large Voss family memorial. Security workers stepped out first. Then the back door of the middle SUV opened. A man emerged. He wore a charcoal coat over a dark suit. Around his neck was a silver tie. Imani's coffee slipped from her hand. The cup struck the grass. Niles looked from the spilled coffee to the stranger. "That must be one powerful tie," he said. Imani could not respond. She knew the man from business magazines and local news reports. Malachi Voss, the CEO of Voss Meridian, one of the richest black men in America. Some newspapers called him brilliant. Others called him dangerous. Online rumors claimed his family had judges, politicians, and half the city's business leaders in their pockets. Malachi walked toward Imani. He moved without hurry. He did not need to demand attention. Everyone around him was already watching. His gaze settled on the brass capsule in Imani's hand, then he looked directly into her eyes. "Imani Rook," he said. It was not a question. Imani slipped the capsule into her coat pocket. "That depends," she replied. "Who is asking?" For the first time, Malachi seemed surprised. "Malachi Voss." "Yes, the cars helped." Niles covered a laugh with a cough. Malachi's eyes moved to the muddy mower behind them. "I was told to speak with cemetery management." Imani pointed toward Mr. Pritchard, who was hurrying toward them while fixing his tie. "That nervous man is management," she said. "Imani is the person who stops rich families from placing monuments over water lines." Malachi glanced at the memorial behind him. "Ours over a water line? Not yet." A brief smile touched his mouth. It disappeared so quickly that Imani almost missed it. "I need to speak with Imani privately," Malachi said. She replied, Mr. Pritchard finally reached them. "Mr. Voss," he said breathlessly. "What an honor. Imani, please show our guest every courtesy." "I have shown him too," Imani said. "He has one left." Malachi looked at Niles. "This concerns Odessa Rook." The humor left the morning. Imani's fingers tightened around the capsule inside her pocket. "Niles, go wait by my truck," she said. Niles frowned. "I can stay." "Go," looked at Malachi, then slowly walked away. When they were alone, Malachi reached into his coat. Imani took a quick step back. He stopped. "It is a document," he said. "Baltimore, that sentence is not as comforting as you think." Removed a sealed envelope and handed it to her. Imani opened it. The first page showed the Voss Meridian logo. Below it was her mother's full name. Odessa Rook had been listed as a founding research partner. Imani looked up sharply. "Mother worked at a university greenhouse. She also helped create the first system that made my company valuable," Malachi said. "She died when I was 12. "I know." "What does that have to do with me?" "Your mother placed her founder shares inside a dormant trust. It was designed to open when a hidden archive sent a signal." Looked at the green grass. "The signal came last night," Malachi continued. "Those shares now belong to you and Niles." "Much are they worth?" Malachi paused. "At yesterday's market value, a little over $3 billion. Stared at him, then she laughed. She laughed so hard that Mr. Pritchard looked over from the pond. "You came all the way here before breakfast to scam a gardener?" she asked. "That feels like poor planning." "It is not a scam. $3 billion. Approximately. Borrowed $20 from me yesterday." "That does not change the value of the shares." Imani shoved the document back into his hands. "I have work." Malachi did not take it. "Someone attempted to transfer those shares 6 hours after they activated." Imani stopped. "They failed because the trust needs your verified approval," he continued. "Now the board knows Odessa's heir is alive. They already knew she had children. They did not know which child carried the archive key." A cold feeling moved through Imani. "What key?" "I do not know." Her mother's warning returned to her. A person could tell the truth while still hiding the part that mattered most. Malachi looked toward Niles. "My aunt, Lenora Voss, plans to take control of the company in 12 days. Your shares can stop her." "What does that have to do with asking for my hand?" Malachi's expression became very still. Imani's heart sank. "That part of the recording was real too," she whispered. Malachi glanced at the capsule hidden in her pocket. Odessa prepared more than one message. "The question," lowered his voice, "if we sign a temporary alliance, your founder shares can enter a protected voting trust with mine. Your identity remains sealed from the public while my legal team defends your ownership." "Sounds like business, not marriage." "Business agreement creates the protection," Malachi said. "A public marriage explains our sudden alliance without exposing your mother's archive. It also gives us an emergency proxy claim if the board challenges your identity." Stared at him in disbelief. "You want a fake wife?" "For 90 days. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "I do not know what rich people do before lunch, but this is not normal." "I am aware." "Are you?" "Yes." The silver tie makes it hard to tell. Malachi's jaw moved as if he were fighting another smile. Then Imani stepped closer. "This be clear," she said. "Imani Rook is not marrying a stranger because he arrived with expensive cars and a folder full of zeros." Malachi met her gaze. "Then do it because someone has already found your brother." By noon, 2 investigators were waiting for Niles outside Baltimore City Community College. They accused him of copying private files from his technology internship. The internship, which Niles had started 3 weeks earlier, belonged to a contractor connected to Voss Meridian. Imani sat beside him in a small interview room while a lawyer explained that the stolen files contained private company data. Niles' hands shook beneath the table. "I did not take anything," he said. Imani believed him. She had raised him. She knew his careless habits, his weak excuses, and the exact face he made when he lied. He was scared, but he did not look guilty. Malachi's attorney arrived 40 minutes later. Maeve Sterling entered in a navy suit and placed her leather case on the table. "Everyone may stop speaking," she said. "The adults have arrived." Looked at her. "Imani is 27. Nodded. "Then one other adult has arrived." "Everything," Niles smiled. Maeve showed the investigators that the digital time record had been altered. Niles had been in class when the files were copied. The investigators released him while the matter was reviewed. Outside, Imani confronted Malachi beside his car. "You arranged this," she said. "The accusation appears hours after Imani refuses your proposal. I understand how it looks." "Do not tell Imani how it looks." Malachi studied her. The first attempt to access your shares came through the same contractor that employed Niles, he said. Someone placed him there before I found you. You knew who Imani was before this morning. For 3 weeks, her face hardened, and you waited. I needed to know who else was watching. That was not your choice to make. No, Malachi admitted. It was not. Answer caught her off guard. Malachi did not defend himself. He simply looked guilty. If a stranger arrived with a marriage offer and claimed a dead parent had left behind billions, would trust come easily? Share that answer in the comments, because the choice Imani made next placed both her heart and her family in greater danger. That evening, Imani and Niles returned to their second-floor apartment in Reservoir Hill. The door was unlocked. Imani knew she had locked it. She held out one arm, stopping Niles. They called the police and waited downstairs. When officers checked the apartment, no one was inside. Nothing expensive was missing. The old television remained in place. Niles' laptop was still on the kitchen counter. Even the emergency cash inside a flour container had not been touched. Only one item had been disturbed. Dessa's metal seed box. It had been taken from Imani's bedroom and left open on the floor. The box was empty. Imani had removed the old seed packets weeks earlier after finding mold inside one corner. They were stored in a sealed container at St. Orison. The intruder had not known that. Niles stared at the box. What did Mom hide? He asked. I do not know. Is that billionaire telling the truth? I do not know that either. For once, Niles had no joke. An hour later, Maeve moved them to a secure guest house owned by the Voss family in Guilford. It stood behind Malachi's main home, a large stone mansion surrounded by trees and a high iron fence. Imani refused to enter the mansion. I am not sleeping in that man's house, she said. Maeve looked toward the guest house. That smaller building has 4 bedrooms. My apartment has 2. Yes, Maeve replied. Poverty is very committed to efficient space. Malachi arrived after midnight. He found Imani sitting on the guest house steps with the brass capsule in her hands. You could still say no, he said. Then what? My attorneys continue defending Niles. My security team protects both of you, even without the agreement. Yes. Why? Malachi looked toward the dark trees. Because Odessa once protected me. Imani waited for more. He did not give it. What happened to no more hidden parts? She asked. You never agreed to that. Then it is Imani's first condition. Malachi faced her. If a direct question concerns your safety, I will answer it. That sounds carefully written. I am a CEO. Carefully written sentences are how we avoid prison. Imani almost smiled, almost. The next morning, she sat with Malachi and Maeve at a long table. She read every page of the 90-day agreement. Maeve watched with approval. Excellent, she said. A sane person. I was beginning to think billionaires had frightened all of them out of Maryland. Added her own conditions. Separate bedrooms. No control over her clothes, work, or money. Niles could never be used as leverage. Malachi could not lie when she asked a direct question. She could leave after 90 days. Any physical affection for the cameras had to be agreed upon first. Malachi signed every condition without complaint. For the next week, their lives moved fast. The private voting alliance was created. Attorneys began defending Imani's shares. Malachi's security team traced the break-in to a car rented under a false identity. Imani continued working at St. Orison because she refused to let anyone chase her away from the only job she had ever loved. Malachi visited twice. The first time, he ruined a pair of expensive shoes in wet soil and pretended not to care. The second time, Imani caught him helping an older groundskeeper lift bags of mulch when he thought no one was watching. He was still secretive, he was still controlling in small, polished ways, but he was not cruel. That made him more difficult to hate. On the 8th night, Imani found him alone in the mansion kitchen holding a broken toaster. He wore black pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. What happened? She asked. It attacked me. It is a toaster. It burned the bread. That is not an attack. It felt personal. Took the toaster from him, their fingers touched for a moment, neither moved. Malachi's voice became quiet. You are still free to cancel the ceremony. The board vote is in 4 days. The alliance is already signed. The ceremony is only the public story. If Imani walks away, I tell the truth, that you changed your mind. His answer surprised her. Most people had demanded things from Imani all her life. Money, time, strength, patience. Malachi was offering her an exit from the one thing he claimed to need. Why are you really doing this? She asked. He looked at her for a long moment. Because I failed to protect someone in your family once, he said. It will not happen again. Imani could ask who. Maeve entered the kitchen. She looked at the broken toaster between them. I see the romance is moving quickly, Maeve said. Imani pulled her hand away. Malachi frowned. There is no romance. Of course not, Maeve replied. Nothing says business like staring at each other beside a dead appliance. Days later, rain fell over St. Orison. Inside the chapel, Imani walked toward Malachi in her simple white dress and old work boots. There were no reporters, no famous guests. Only Niles, Maeve, 2 security guards, the minister, and Mr. Pritchard, who had invited himself after learning there would be free cake. Malachi stood at the altar. For once, he did not look like a man in control. He looked nervous. When Imani reached him, he took her hand. Are the flowers making you nervous? She whispered. I have survived federal agents, 3 hostile takeovers, and Thanksgiving dinner with my aunt, Malachi said. Flowers do not frighten me. Then why do you keep watching the door? Because someone followed us. Imani could respond. Maeve's laptop made a soft sound. She read the new message on the screen. Her face changed. At that same moment, vehicles stopped outside. The chapel doors flew open. The federal agents entered. Now Imani understood why Malachi had looked afraid. The ceremony had not been completed. No vows had been exchanged. Within minutes, Malachi was taken away under accusations connected to her parents' disappearance. Niles stood near the altar, pale and silent, after Malachi accused him of entering a restricted office. Imani did not go home with her brother. She changed out of the white dress, pulled on her work coat, and drove alone through the rain to the Rook Memorial. A newly delivered display stone stood near Odessa's marker. It had no name. Only a date had been carved into it. Tomorrow's date. Imani dug beneath it with her mother's old hand spade. 6 inches down, the blade struck metal. She pulled a narrow silver case from the wet soil. Inside was a sealed glass tube containing a small green plant. There was also a photograph. Imani lifted it with shaking fingers. The picture showed an older black man leaving Baltimore Penn Station. He wore a gray coat and looked directly toward the camera. Imani knew that face. She had seen it in old family pictures. She had searched for it in crowds when she was a child. She had dreamed about it on the worst nights of her life. It was Cyrus Rook, her father. A timestamp in the corner showed that the photograph had been taken 2 days earlier. Imani's knees weakened. Her father had not died 15 years ago. He was alive. On the back of the photograph, someone had written 7 words. Malachi did not destroy this family. Cyrus did. Behind Imani, a branch snapped. She turned quickly. A figure stood beyond the trees, watching her through the rain. Niles, Imani called. The figure stepped back and vanished into the darkness. Her phone began to ring. The call came from Niles. Imani stared at his name but did not answer. She no longer knew whether her brother was calling to warn her or to find out if she had discovered the truth. Imani had spent 15 years mourning her father. Now someone had placed proof in her hands that he was alive. But if Cyrus Rook had survived, why had he left his children alone and struggling? And if Malachi was not responsible for destroying her family, why had he hidden so much from her? Subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, because this story is just getting started. Imani Rook stood beside her parents' memorial with rain running down her face. In one hand, she held a recent photograph of Cyrus Rook, her father, the man she had mourned for 15 years. On the back of the photograph, 7 words had been written. Malachi did not destroy this family. Cyrus did. The cemetery trees, a dark figure had just disappeared. Then Imani's phone rang. Her brother's name appeared on the screen, Niles. Malachi had warned her not to trust him. Security footage placed him inside a restricted Voss Meridian office. Now he was calling moments after someone had watched Imani uncover the photograph. The phone continued ringing. Imani answered but said nothing. Imani, Niles asked. Where are you? She looked toward the trees. Why do you want to know? There was a pause. What does that mean? Niles asked. It means Imani asked a question. You left the chapel without saying anything. Maeve said Malachi told you to dig under some stone. Are you at the cemetery? Imani tightened her grip on the metal case. How did you know that? I was standing 10 feet away when he said it. Branch moved in the darkness. Imani turned. Who did you tell? She asked. No one. You inside a restricted Voss Meridian office 3 nights ago. Niles went silent. Imani's heart sank. Niles, I can explain. Then explain. Over the phone. That is what people say when the truth sounds bad. I was trying to help. Help whom? Imani, please leave the cemetery. Something is wrong. You have no idea. Headlights appeared along the wet path. Imani stepped behind the memorial and held the hand spade in front of her. It was not much protection, but it was the only thing within reach. A dark sedan stopped nearby. Maeve Sterling stepped out beneath a large black umbrella. She took one look at the hand spade. "If that is intended as a weapon," Maeve said, "please know that the paperwork will be unbearable." Imani slowly lowered it. "Were you following Imani?" "No. Malachi asked me to find you before federal agents took his phone." Looked toward the trees. "Someone else was here," Imani said. Maeve opened the back door of the sedan. "Then this conversation should happen somewhere with locks." Looked down at the photograph again. Her father's face stared back at her. "Cyrus Rook alive?" she asked. Maeve's calm expression changed. She saw the picture. For the first time since Imani had met her, the attorney had no quick answer. "That," Maeve said quietly, "is a question Malachi must answer himself." Malachi Voss was released shortly after sunrise. Federal investigators had received digital records placing him near the Chesapeake Bay on the night of the boat explosion 15 years earlier. However, Malachi had been 19 at the time and attending a public charity event in Washington, D.C. There were photographs, news recordings, and more than 200 witnesses. Someone had altered old location records to make them point toward him. The evidence was strong enough to create a public arrest. It was not strong enough to hold him. Malachi returned to his estate in Guilford just after 8 in the morning. Reporters crowded outside the iron gates, shouting questions about the Rook family and his failed wedding. Imani waited for him inside his study. She had changed into jeans, a dark sweater, and her work boots. The white wedding dress hung inside the guest house, still carrying a small line of cemetery soil along its hem. The silver case rested on Malachi's desk. So did the photograph of Cyrus. When Malachi entered, his suit was wrinkled and his silver tie was gone. He looked tired, but his eyes remained sharp. Imani held up the photograph. "You knew he might be alive." Malachi closed the door. "Yes." The simple answer struck harder than an excuse. "For how long?" 3 weeks. "Before you came to the cemetery." "Yes." Imani walked toward him. "Imani buried that man at 12 years old." "I know." "No, Malachi, you know the date. Imani knows what came after it." Her voice began to shake, but she did not stop. "She knows what it was like to sit beside Niles when he cried for his father. She knows what it was like to leave school because Rent did not care that 2 children had lost their parents. She knows what it was like to search every crowd for a face that never came home." Malachi took her anger without moving. "And for 3 weeks," she continued, "you had reason to believe Cyrus was alive." "I had one unclear image from a station camera," Malachi said. "I could not confirm it was him." "You could have told Imani." "Yes, but you decided she could not handle the truth. I decided an unconfirmed image might bring you hope that could destroy you twice. That was not your decision to make." "No," Malachi said, "it was not." Looked away. His willingness to admit fault did not erase the hurt. Somehow it made the hurt more complicated. She pointed toward the green plant sealed inside the glass tube. "What is that?" "I do not know." "What is the archive?" "I do not know everything." "Then tell Imani what you do know, all of it." Malachi walked to the window. Reporters stood beyond the distant gates. "I met Odessa when I was 17, he said. "My father had brought me into Voss Meridian early. He wanted me trained before I was old enough to challenge him." "Your father was Everett Voss?" "Yes." Newspapers had called Everett a businessman. Other people had used darker words. He had died 6 years earlier, leaving Malachi the company and a reputation full of shadows. "Odessa worked with Cyrus and a small research team," Malachi continued. "They were building a system that studied unfair patterns in lending, hearing, and housing. Odessa discovered that my father wanted to use their work for something else." "What?" She would not tell me. She said knowing too much would place me in danger. "You listened?" "No, I was 17. Herself, Imani understood that answer. Malachi faced her. "I found documents inside my father's office. Odessa helped me leave the building before his security team caught me. She protected me when she had no reason to." "What happened the night she died?" Malachi's expression hardened. "She called me. She said Cyrus had changed and that Niles and Imani were in danger. I sent help to the boat." "You sent your father's people." "I sent someone I trusted," Malachi said. "My father learned about it. After the explosion, Odessa and Cyrus disappeared. I believed both were dead until the image of Cyrus appeared 3 weeks ago." Imani studied his face. "Did your father cause the explosion?" "I do not know." "You?" "No." His answer came without hesitation. "Did you know my mother as an adult?" No, I was 19 when she disappeared. I never saw her again. That explained the careful statement he had made before the wedding. It did not excuse it. You should have told Imani before the ceremony. Yes. Stop agreeing as if that makes it better. It does not, Malachi replied. But defending a mistake will not turn it into the truth. The room fell silent. A knock came at the door. Niles entered with Maeve behind him. Imani's body became tense. Niles stopped when he saw the photograph. That is Dad, he whispered. Where were you 3 nights ago? Imani asked. He looked at Malachi, then back at her. Internship supervisor told me to deliver a drive to the Harbor East office. At night. He said it was urgent. Why did you not tell Imani? Because you already think every choice I make needs your approval. I raised you. I love you for it, Niles said. But Imani, you are my sister. Sometimes you look at me and still see a 5-year-old with missing teeth. You entered a restricted office and were accused of stealing files. I did not know it was restricted. My access card opened the door. Placed several printed images on the desk. The footage was altered, she said. Niles entered a records room, but the time code was changed. He was inside for 43 seconds, not 14 minutes. What did you do in there? Malachi asked. I left the drive on a desk and walked out. Who gave it to you? Niles named his supervisor. Malachi and Maeve exchanged a look. Imani asked. That man disappeared yesterday, Maeve said. Niles slowly sat down. Disappeared how? He emptied his apartment and left his job, Maeve clarified. No one is suggesting anything worse. Niles exhaled. Good, because that pause was doing too much. Wanted to believe him. He sounded like her brother. He looked like her brother. But someone had used him to reach her. Whether Niles understood it or not, he was part of the trap. By that afternoon, the world knew about Imani. News outlets called her Malachi's secret bride, even though the ceremony had never been completed. Old pictures from her social media appeared online. Reporters stood outside St. Orison and questioned Mr. Pritchard about her job. Mr. Pritchard enjoyed the attention far more than he should have. He told one reporter that he had always known Imani was destined for major things. Imani watched the interview from Malachi's mansion. That man refused Imani a 50-cent raise, she said. Maeve sat beside her with a laptop. He has now described himself as your mentor 3 times. If he says it again, Imani may return to the cemetery with a shovel. Looked at her. For gardening. Of course. Answer. For security, Imani and Niles moved from the guest house into the main mansion. Malachi's estate sat on a quiet tree-lined street in Guilford. The old stone house had wide windows, carved staircases, and enough rooms to start its own zip code. Imani chose the smallest bedroom. It was still larger than the apartment she shared with Niles. That evening, she woke before sunrise and went outside to the rear garden. A row of rose bushes showed signs of poor drainage. Imani found tools inside a garden shed and began opening the packed soil. Malachi discovered her there an hour later. He wore a dark suit and held a cup of coffee. You have gardeners, Imani said. I am aware. They are watering these roses too often. I will inform them. Not get anyone fired. I was going to ask them to water the roses less. Imani glanced at him. Rich men do not usually respond that calmly to orders before breakfast. You were not giving an order. You were rescuing plants that cannot defend themselves. That sounds like something a man says when he wants free garden work. Malachi handed her the coffee. It had exactly the amount of cream she preferred. Imani noticed. She did not ask how he knew. For the next 3 days, they lived under the same roof while trusting each other only in pieces. Imani learned that Malachi woke at 5 every morning, disliked loud television, and read old crime novels when he could not sleep. He learned that Imani sang badly while working, carried peppermints in every coat, and apologized to plants when trimming them at dinner. Niles watched them argue about whether Malachi's dining table was too long. It seats 24, Imani said. Why? For dinners. With whom? The entire city council. Not at the same time. Niles looked between them. This is the strangest marriage without a marriage Imani has ever had. Malachi put down his glass. There is no marriage. The words felt colder than they should have. Imani told herself it was because the ceremony had been interrupted. Nothing more. 2 days later, Malachi brought Imani to Voss Meridian's headquarters in Harbor East. The glass tower stood near the waterfront, surrounded by offices, hotels, and new apartment buildings. From the upper floors, Imani could see the inner harbor stretching west toward downtown. The boardroom was filled with people who looked at her boots before they looked at her face. Lenora Voss sat at the head of the table. She was 57, elegant, and dressed in cream. Her smooth voice never rose. It did not need to. This is Odessa's daughter, Lenora said. Imani Rook, Imani replied. Lenora smiled. Yes, the cemetery worker. Gardener. Is there a difference? A gardener makes things grow, Imani said. Some people only sit close to what other people built. Looked down to hide a smile. Malachi did not hide his. The board discussed a Voss Meridian development project in East Baltimore. Lenora praised the plan's speed and low cost. Imani studied an image projected on the wall. The design included a technology center, parking structure, and small community garden. What happened to the rainwater? Imani asked. A board member frowned. What rainwater? The plan removes most of the open soil and sends runoff toward the lowest block. Heavy rain will collect beside those homes. This was reviewed by experts, Lenora said. Imani pointed toward the screen. Then the experts did not visit after rain. The land slopes east, but the drainage map assumes it slopes south. The room became quiet. Malachi turned toward the project director. Check it. Director opened a file, compared two maps, and slowly lost color in his face. She is correct, he admitted. Correcting the project would cost money. Ignoring the problem could have cost families their homes. Lenora looked at Imani differently after that, not with respect, with calculation. After the meeting, Malachi joined Imani in a quiet hallway. You enjoyed that, he said. A little. Little? Fine, a lot. Malachi smiled. It was a real smile this time. For one unguarded second, Imani forgot that he was a billionaire with secrets. He was simply a handsome man looking at her as if she had surprised him. That evening, they stood on a private terrace overlooking the harbor. Lenora hates Imani, she said. Lenora does not hate people. She assigns them values. That is worse. Yes. Do people call your family a mafia? Malachi leaned against the railing. Grandmother created a network after her parents lost their property through a dishonest housing deal. Black attorneys, drivers, business owners, church leaders, and investigators began helping families that had no power in courtrooms or banks. That does not sound like a mafia. Members crossed legal lines. My father later used parts of the network to frighten rivals and protect his business. I use it to protect workers who expose powerful people. Safe housing, attorneys, new jobs, transportation when needed. Studied him. Nothing illegal. I did not say that. She raised an eyebrow. Malachi continued quickly. I do not order harm. I do not sell illegal goods. I do not threaten families. But some people helping us have complicated histories. That is another carefully written sentence. It is the honest one. Malachi's reputation made him look like the danger, but the truth was far more complicated. Would Imani be wise to trust the man everyone feared, or was his kindness another part of the trap? Share that answer in the comments, because what Imani found next changed the meaning of their entire wedding. That night, Imani could not sleep. She went to the mansion library looking for the legal agreement. Maeve had left several files for her to review. One leather case remained locked. The lock had not been closed properly. Imani opened it. Inside was the marriage license prepared for the chapel ceremony. A yellow note was attached to the front. Not file, even if ceremony is completed. M.V. Imani read it twice. Malachi had never intended for their marriage to become legal. Even if the federal agents had not interrupted them, she would have walked away believing she was his wife when she was not. Malachi found her in the library with the document in her hand. What is this? She demanded. He stopped. You went through Maeve's case. The case was open. That does not make the contents yours. Imani's name is on this paper. Could not argue with that. You told Maeve not to file the license, she said. The wedding. Yes, you agreed under pressure. I agreed to the business alliance. It remains active, Malachi said. Your shares are protected. Niles has legal support. None of that required a completed marriage. You were going to let Imani stand in that chapel and make vows. I intended to tell you before the vows. Maeve confirmed the trust was secure, laughed bitterly. You always have a reason for waiting. I did not want you legally tied to me because someone threatened your brother. You could have said that. I should have. It is again. Malachi stepped closer, then stopped when she moved back. The public ceremony protected the story around our alliance, he said, but I would not take your legal consent while you were afraid. So you replaced Imani's choice with your own. His face tightened. Yes, that one word ended something between them. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was the small hope that had begun growing beside broken toasters and dying roses. Imani placed the license on the table. You promised no lies. I did not lie. You built a house out of missing truth and expected Imani to call it honesty. She walked past him. Malachi did not stop her. Outside, Maeve waited beside a car. "Did you know?" Imani asked. Maeve did not pretend to misunderstand. "Yes, you should have told Imani." "Yes. Does everyone in this family answer questions like a courtroom witness?" "I am not part of the family," Maeve said. "And for what it is worth, I told Malachi the plan was noble, foolish, and certain to make you furious. You were correct." "I usually am. It is exhausting." Left the mansion that night. She did not return to the apartment in Reservoir Hill. Reporters still watched the building. Instead, she stayed in a small hotel near Fells Point, using a room Maeve booked under a protected name. The next afternoon, Lenora Voss found her. Lenora waited at a quiet waterfront restaurant inside a restored brick building. Sunlight reflected from the harbor through the windows. "I did not tell her where Imani was," Maeve said over the phone. "Imani believes you." "Good, leave through the kitchen." Looked across the restaurant. Lenora raised one hand in greeting. Imani said. "She came to talk." Imani wants to hear what she thinks is worth saying. Sat across from Lenora. Lenora ordered tea. "Malachi believes protection excuses secrecy," Lenora said. Imani noticed. "He is like his father in that way." Malachi does not seem to like his father. "Children often become what they hate while trying to prove they are different." Slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer granting Imani immediate access to a large part of Odessa's fortune. "All Imani must do is support you at the board vote," Imani said. "Support stable leadership." "You, someone who understands the cost of power." Closed the folder. "You think a cemetery gardener does not understand cost. I think poverty makes people emotional about money. Wealth makes people believe greed is logic." Smile disappeared. "Malachi wants your ownership key. So do you. The difference is that I am honest about it." Stood. "The difference is that you are proud of it." She left the money on the table, but she did not return to Malachi. The sealed plant remained her only clear path to the truth. The following morning, Imani took it to Rawlings Conservatory near Druid Hill Park. Odessa had once volunteered there and left research notes in its botanical archive. With help from an older plant specialist, Imani identified the sample as a lab-developed type of red fescue. Its genetic record contained unusual repeating markers, not natural mutations. A code. A note inside Odessa's old research file directed Imani back to St. Orison's small propagation greenhouse. The cemetery used it to store young plants through winter. Imani arrived there shortly before sunset. She had told Maeve where she was going, but asked to enter alone. Inside the greenhouse, warm air fogged the windows. Rows of young flowers stood beneath soft lights. Imani placed the glass tube beside an old seed tray bearing Odessa's initials. A small screen built into the workbench turned on. 2 words appeared. "Engine." Then a voice spoke behind her. "Your mother always knew you would understand the grass." Imani froze. Slowly she turned. A tall black man stood between the rows of plants. His hair was gray at the temples. Time had changed his face, but not enough. Imani recognized him from the photograph. She recognized him from childhood memories. She recognized the voice that had once read stories beside her bed. She whispered. Cyrus Rook smiled. "Little star." Opened his arms. Imani did not move. 15 years of grief stood between them. "You are alive," she said. "Yes. You let us believe you were dead. I kept you safe. We were children." "I know." Waited by the window for a year. Pain moved across Cyrus's face, but it vanished too quickly. "I watched over both of you. Where? From places where my enemies could not see me. You watched us struggle. I watched you survive." Stared at him in disbelief. "That is not the same as being a father." Lowered his arms. "You sound like Odessa." "Good." Expression cooled. "Your mother was brilliant, but she allowed emotion to weaken her judgment." "What happened to her?" Cyrus looked toward the screen. Malachi Voss happened. He touched the keyboard. A video began playing. It showed a much younger Malachi standing inside an office. His face was tense. His recorded voice said, "Odessa is taking the boat tonight. I sent the location." The clip ended. Imani's stomach twisted. "He told Imani he sent help," she said. "He sent his father," Cyrus replied. "Why should Imani trust? Malachi did not marry you for love or protection. He needed your biological identity to unlock the Tomorrow engine. We did not get married." "I know, that was not his plan." Thought of the unfiled license. Cyrus had known. He walked closer. "The machine was created to protect people from their worst choices," he said. "Your mother hid its final control key inside the seed archive. That key now belongs to you." "Is that why you came back?" Cyrus looked into her eyes. "I came back because the machine finally needs you." Because his daughter needed him, not because Niles had grown up without a father. The machine needed her. That was his answer. The greenhouse lights flickered. Every screen along the far wall turned on. Manny saw live footage from her Reservoir Hill apartment. Another screen showed Malachi's mansion. A third showed Voss Meridian's boardroom. The final screen showed Niles sitting in a small locked room. He looked frightened. Manny rushed toward the screen. Niles, he could not hear her. Cyrus watched without concern. He entered places he did not understand, he said. Just like Malachi. What did you do to him? He is safe. Is he? Help me open the archive and he goes home. The screen, Niles raised his head. His gaze moved toward the camera, then he spoke. Manny, do not believe Dad. The screen went black. Cyrus Rook had returned from the dead, but he had not returned as a father. He had returned for the power hidden inside his daughter. Malachi had hidden the truth. Cyrus wanted to control it. And Niles was trapped between them. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because Manny must decide whether to trust a billionaire who deceived her, a father who abandoned her, or herself. Her choice will reveal what the Tomorrow Engine truly does, and why someone powerful has been guiding her family's lives for 15 years. Manny Rook stood inside the greenhouse, staring at the screen that had just gone black. Only seconds earlier, it had shown her younger brother trapped in a locked room. Niles had looked directly into the camera and said 5 words. Manny, do not believe Dad. Now his image was gone. Behind Manny, Cyrus Rook stood with one hand resting on the greenhouse workbench. He looked calm. Far too calm for a father whose son was being held somewhere against his will. Manny turned toward him. Where is Niles? He is safe, Cyrus replied. A locked room is not safe. It is safer than the world outside it. Manny's hands curled into fists. 15 years ago, she had remembered Cyrus as warm and gentle. He had carried her on his shoulders at Druid Hill Park. He had made pancakes shaped like stars. He had called her his little light, but the man standing before her felt nothing like that father. This man looked at fear as if it were a tool. Him go, Manny said. Open the archive first. Pointed toward the sealed plant beside Odessa's old seed tray, the screen on the workbench still displayed 2 words. Engine. What does it do? Manny asked. Cyrus smiled slightly. It helps people make better choices. By locking them in rooms, by keeping them away from danger. Warn me not to trust you. Does not understand what is happening. Then explain it. Walked between the rows of young plants. His voice took on the calm, patient tone Manny remembered from childhood. Your mother and I built the Tomorrow Engine to study patterns, he said. We wanted to understand why certain communities kept losing the same battles. Loan applications were rejected. Qualified workers were ignored. Medical supplies reached wealthy areas first. Families lost homes because no one warned them in time. That sounds useful. It was, at first. Touched a leaf with one finger. Then I realized prediction was not enough. A machine could warn people about an unfair result, but powerful institutions could still ignore the warning. So you changed it. I improved it. Thought about Malachi's altered location records, Niles' false time code, the internship that had placed her brother near Voss Meridian. You made it influence choices, she said. Cyrus looked pleased. You always were quick. Pleasure in his face made Manny feel cold. The Tomorrow Engine did not see the future. It studied people, found their fears and desires, and quietly narrowed the options placed in front of them. It could not control minds. It did something more subtle. It controlled which doors people saw. A job offer could be hidden. A loan could be delayed. A damaging story could appear at the perfect time. A false record could direct investigators toward an innocent person. Millions of small choices could be pushed toward one result. You used it on Niles, Manny said. I guided him toward the internship. You used it on me. I guided Malachi toward you. Cyrus's smile grew. Even the silver tie, Manny asked. That was Odessa's idea. Years ago, she left instructions for Malachi to wear it when the founder shares activated. She wanted you to recognize him. So Mom's recording did not predict the future. No, your mother arranged a signal and trusted that Malachi would follow it. Looked at the plant, and the stone marked with tomorrow's date. Part of Odessa's delayed archive, Cyrus replied. Release the location after your shares became active. Who wrote the message on the photograph? Cyrus's face tightened. Malachi did not destroy this family. Cyrus did. Your mother, he said. She built the message into the archive before the boat explosion. The words struck Manny hard. Odessa had known Cyrus was dangerous. She had tried to warn her daughter. What happened on that boat? Manny asked. Cyrus looked away. Your mother refused to understand the importance of the engine. That is not an answer. She tried to erase years of work. Happened. Cyrus's calm expression finally cracked. We argued. A fuel line had already been damaged. There was a fire. I tried to reach her, but the deck collapsed between us. Imani's eyes filled with tears. You left her there. I survived. You left all of us. I did what was necessary to protect the engine. It was not his wife, not his children. The machine. Cyrus stepped closer. History will forgive difficult choices when it sees what they created. Imani shook her head. History is often just pain explained by the person who caused it. Cyrus's eyes hardened. He reached toward the workbench. Before his hand touched the screen, every light in the greenhouse went out. Darkness filled the room. A second later, an emergency light flashed red above the door. Cyrus turned. The greenhouse door opened. Malachi Voss entered with Maeve and 2 members of his security team behind him. Malachi's dark coat was wet from the rain. His gaze found Imani first. Are you hurt? He asked. Stepped between them. You should not have come here, Malachi. Malachi's expression became cold. You took Niles. I removed him from a dangerous situation. You created the danger. Smiled. Everett trained you well. My father trained me to recognize men who call control protection. Maeve moved toward the workbench and disconnected a small device Cyrus had placed beneath it. The black screens remained dark. Where is Niles? Imani asked. Maeve held up a phone. We traced the video feed to a storage office inside Voss Meridian's Harbor East building. Malachi's people reached it 6 minutes ago. Imani's breath caught. Is he safe? Maeve nodded. He is frightened, angry, and demanding food. In other words, he appears normal. Almost weakened Imani's knees. Cyrus did not seem surprised. You think finding the boy changes anything? He asked. The archive will only open for Imani. Malachi looked at the sealed plant. What is inside it? Enough proof to ruin Voss Meridian, Cyrus answered, and enough power to rebuild it under someone with vision. Like you? Imani asked. Someone who understands that freedom without direction is chaos. Malachi faced Imani. There is something else you need to see. Removed a thin folder from inside his coat and placed it on the workbench. Inside were old messages between Malachi and Odessa. One had been sent on the night of the boat explosion. Everett has found us. Send someone outside the Voss network. Do not come yourself. Protect the children. Malachi had replied. I sent the boat location to a federal contact. Help is moving now. The video Cyrus had shown Imani included only part of that statement. Odessa is taking the boat tonight. I sent the location. Cyrus had removed the context. You told the truth, Imani said, but you still hid it from me. Yes, Malachi replied. Why bring this now? Because you deserve the entire record, even if it makes you walk away from me. Placed another document beside the messages. It transferred Malachi's voting authority to Imani for 30 days. With that power and Odessa's founder shares, Imani could remove him as CEO. She could even support Lenora. Malachi was handing her the power to destroy his career. Cyrus laughed. A dramatic gesture does not make him honest. No, Imani said, but giving someone a choice is different from demanding obedience. Malachi met her gaze. I should have told you about the photograph. I should have told you about Odessa before the ceremony. I stopped the marriage license because I did not want fear to bind you to me, but I had no right to hide that choice either. For once, there was no careful business language, no polished defense, only the truth. What do you want from me now? Imani asked. Nothing, Malachi replied. Niles is safe. The shares belong to you. Walk away if that is what you choose. Shook his head. He is lying. Looked at her father. No, that is why he frightens you. Malachi is willing to lose. Sounded beyond the cemetery gates. Cyrus stepped back. You called federal agents? Maeve adjusted the sleeve of her suit. I called several agencies, she said. I enjoy giving professionals options. Did not panic. Instead, he smiled. Arrest me tonight and Lenora activates the Tomorrow engine at the shareholder summit tomorrow morning. I already gave her access. Malachi's face changed. Cyrus continued. She thinks the engine will secure her place as chairwoman. By noon, every vote will move in her direction. Looked at Imani. Come to the summit and open the archive for me. If you refuse, Odessa's life's work disappears under Lenora's control. Federal agents entered the greenhouse. As they escorted Cyrus away for questioning in connection with Niles' confinement and the altered records, he looked back at his daughter. You will choose me, he said, because I taught you to protect your family. Imani held his gaze. Mom taught me that. Next morning, hundreds of shareholders filled the main conference hall inside Voss Meridian's Harbor East headquarters. News crews waited outside. Rumors of fraud had pushed the company's value down overnight. Lenora had called an emergency vote to remove Malachi as CEO and take control of Odessa's founder shares. Imani stood in a private office 30 floors above the waterfront. Niles sat on a couch eating a breakfast sandwich. His wrists were unmarked, and he had not been physically harmed. Cyrus's employees had taken his phone and locked him inside an office for several hours, but he was safe. Imani sat beside him. "Why were you looking at the camera before you warned me?" she asked. Niles swallowed his food. "Dad told me to copy files from the company system. I acted like I agreed." "You agreed to help the man who locked you in a room. I needed him to believe I was scared enough to listen." "You were scared." "Very." Niles reached into the lining of his sneaker and removed a tiny storage card. "But fear does not make Niles useless." Stared at the card. "What is on it?" "Dad's private records. He gave me access because he thought I wanted his approval." "Do you?" Niles looked down. "For about 5 minutes, maybe. He walked into that room alive after 15 years. A part of me wanted him to explain everything and make it hurt less." Imani took his hand. "So did I." Then he started talking about the machine as if it were his third child. "His favorite child," Imani said. Niles gave a sad laugh. Maeve entered with Malachi. "The board vote begins in 20 minutes, Maeve said. "That card could prove Cyrus manipulated company systems, but we still need Odessa's archive to establish ownership and intent." Looked at the sealed plant. "How does it open?" Niles turned his laptop toward her. "The markers inside the grass form a key, but there is one missing sequence." Studied the plant through the glass. The blades had a thin red line near each tip. She suddenly remembered something. When Odessa had taught her to plant fescue as a child, she always used 7 rows. 6 straight rows and 1 curved row through the middle. Imani removed the plant from the tube and separated the roots carefully. There were 7 clusters. The middle cluster curved. Numbers had been printed inside the seed tray at St. Orison. Imani had assumed they marked planting dates. They were not dates. They were the missing sequence. She entered them into Niles' computer. A folder opened. Thousands of records appeared. Odessa's face filled the screen. "If Imani is watching this," Odessa said, "then Cyrus has tried to take control of the engine." Imani's eyes filled with tears. Odessa explained that she had encoded the archive in plant genetics because digital files could be changed. The grass was a physical record that Cyrus could not alter from a computer. It contained proof that the Tomorrow engine had been designed to detect unfair systems, not manipulate people. It also contained Odessa's final legal order. Her founder shares were to pass to Imani. If the engine was ever used to restrict opportunity, Imani had the authority to convert Voss Meridian into a public benefit company. Niles stared at his sister. "You own the controlling vote." Looked at Malachi. "With your proxy." He nodded. "Whatever you decide, I will support it." Malachi had secrets. Cyrus had blood ties. Lenora had influence. But only one person had finally trusted Imani with the whole choice. If someone had hidden the truth in the name of protection, could love ever survive that betrayal? And should Imani forgive Malachi now that he had surrendered the power he once tried to control? Share that answer in the comments, because Imani was about to make a decision no one in the boardroom expected. Lenora stood at the front of the shareholder hall in a white suit. She looked calm as Imani, Malachi, Niles, and Maeve entered. "Malachi should not be here," Lenora said. "The vote concerns his removal." "I gave my voting proxy to Imani," Malachi replied. A quiet wave of surprise moved through the room. Lenora's gaze shifted to Imani. "Then Cyrus was right. You have chosen emotion over stability." Walked to the front. Imani chose evidence. Niles connected his laptop to the main screen. Records appeared behind them. They showed how Cyrus had altered applications, company reports, location files, and internal messages. He had guided the board toward decisions that strengthened his hidden control. Maeve had already sent copies to federal investigators, independent journalists, and regulators. No single person could erase them now. Lenora remained calm. "The records may be false." Imani placed Odessa's grass archive on the table. "These are matched to physical records created 15 years ago." Then Odessa's final recording played throughout the hall. Her voice explained Cyrus's changes to the Tomorrow engine. It also named Lenora. Lenora Voss believes she will control the engine. Cyrus will allow her to believe that until her influence becomes a threat. His face lost its calm. Maeve displayed one final record taken from Niles' storage card. It was Cyrus's future control list. Lenora's name appeared near the top. Beside it were 2 words. Access. had never planned to share power with her. For the first time, Lenora looked afraid. "What does remove access mean?" she asked. "It means the engine would block your influence," Niles said. "Your calls would stop reaching the right people. Your deals would fail. Your own board would slowly turn against you." Stared at the screen. She had spent her life building power because she feared returning to the poverty her family had escaped. Now she finally understood the flaw in Cyrus's promise. No one remained powerful beneath one man's control. Lenora turned toward Maeve. "I have records from Everett's private archive," she said. "They prove Cyrus met with him before Odessa's boat exploded." Malachi stared at his aunt. "You had those records?" "Yes." "You hid them." "I was protecting the company." Stepped closer. "No, you were protecting your seat." Did not argue. "I will give sworn testimony," she said, "and I will support the public benefit order." Her decision did not erase what she had done. It did, however, end Cyrus's final path back into the company. Imani faced the shareholders. "The Tomorrow engine was built to expose unfair choices," she said. "Cyrus turned it into a way to control them. Voss Meridian will not belong to him. It will not belong to Lenora. It will not belong only to Malachi or Imani." She looked around the room. "The company will share ownership with its workers. Communities harmed by its decisions will receive funds and support. Odessa's original fairness research will serve the public under independent review. Every function built to hide opportunity or steer private choices will be shut down." One board member stood. "That will cost billions." Looked at him. "Then billions were built on the wrong people paying the cost." The vote passed. Not by one vote, by an overwhelming majority. Once the full truth became public, even people who had planned to support Lenora changed sides. The Tomorrow engine's control systems were shut down under outside supervision. Cyrus faced charges for fraud, unlawful confinement, conspiracy, and evidence manipulation. His legal case would take time, but he could no longer reach the system he had valued above his family. Lenora resigned as chairwoman and agreed to cooperate with investigators. Malachi resigned as CEO. Imani found him alone in his office after the vote. "You did not have to resign," she said. "Yes, I did." "Why? Voss Meridian needs a beginning that is not built around fear of my family." "What will you do?" Malachi looked through the glass toward Baltimore's waterfront. "I do not know." Imani smiled. "That might be the first normal thing you have ever said." He turned toward her. "Are you leaving the company?" "Me." Imani let the silence sit between them. "You hurt me," she said. "Stopping the license may have come from a good place, but hiding it did not. I know, trust will not return because the board voted. I know that too. You agree too much. I am trying something new. Maeve calls it listening." Almost laughed, then she stepped closer. "Imani is not ready to marry you. I am not asking, but she is willing to have dinner with you." Malachi's eyes softened. "Business dinner? No contracts. A security meeting? No." His mouth curved into a smile. "Then I should warn you, I have very little experience." Imani noticed. This time they both laughed. 6 months later, St. Orison Memorial Gardens had changed. Imani had purchased the cemetery from Mr. Pritchard after he announced, for the 6th time on television, that he had discovered her. She kept him as a consultant with no power over salaries. The workers found that arrangement very entertaining. Beside the cemetery, the Odessa Rook Community Garden provided fresh food, training, and paid work for local families. Voss Meridian funded gardens, scholarships, and small neighborhood businesses across Baltimore. Niles returned to college. He also worked part-time with Maeve's new technology ethics team. Maeve claimed supervising him required more patience than any court case. Niles claimed Maeve had no patience to begin with. One Saturday morning, Malachi asked Imani to meet him at Rawlings Conservatory. She found him beneath the glass roof, surrounded by black-eyed Susans. There were no reporters, no agents, no board members, no emergency trust agreement. Malachi wore a dark suit, but there was no silver tie. He held a small ring. Imani stopped. "Has Maeve seen that?" "Yes." "Has she filed anything?" "No. She threatened to throw me into the harbor if I touched another marriage document without your permission." That is the first legal advice from her that Imani fully supports. Malachi smiled, then became serious. "The first time I asked you to marry me, I needed your shares. I told myself I was protecting you, but I still placed my plan above your choice." He lowered himself to one knee. "This time I have no contract, no company, no hidden reason. I only have a question." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "Imani Rook, will you marry me?" She let him wait for 3 long seconds. It was not necessary. It was simply satisfying. She said. Their wedding took place in the community garden beside St. Orison. Imani wore a white dress and her old work boots. This time, the boots were clean. Niles cried during the vows and later denied it. Maeve carried tissues but claimed they were for allergies. Lenora did not attend, though she sent Odessa's restored research journal to Imani without a note. After the ceremony, Imani walked alone to her mother's memorial. She planted the final seeds from Odessa's metal box in 7 rows, 6 straight, 1 curved through the middle. The brass capsule activated one last time. Odessa's voice rose gently from it. Imani, grace is not the place where struggle ends. Grace is the moment struggle no longer decides who a person must become. Closed her eyes. For years, she had believed survival meant never needing anyone. Cyrus had believed love meant controlling people so they could never make the wrong choice. Malachi had once believed protection justified secrets. They had all been wrong. Love without freedom was only a softer kind of prison. Malachi approached but remained a respectful distance away until Imani reached for his hand. Niles came down the path carrying 2 plates of food. "Sorry for being late," he said. "Traffic was terrible." Followed behind him. "You live 10 minutes away," she said. "Terrible traffic can happen anywhere. You walked here." Traffic. Imani laughed. The sound carried across the garden her mother had made possible. She had begun with soil beneath her nails, bills on her table, and a brother she was afraid to lose. She ended with wealth, truth, and a man who had learned to love her without deciding for her. But the billions were not her greatest rise. Her greatest rise was becoming powerful without becoming controlling. She did not climb high enough to forget the people beneath her. She built a path wide enough for others to rise too. If Imani's journey touched the heart, share this story with someone who needs to remember that a painful beginning does not have to control the ending. And always remember the lesson Odessa left behind. Real grace is not gaining enough power to control others. Real grace is having power and still respecting their freedom. Love does not remove choice. Love protects it.